Invoice line items are automatically generated in PowerDetails when personnel report their actual hours worked. Administrators have the ability to complete this process if necessary, but this is usually the responsibility of the personnel user. It is always useful to view the list of hours waiting to be confirmed under the billing menu and clicking Bill Completed Jobs. This, alongside an invoice's progress bar, will determine if additional details have yet to be reported or if the jobs that will eventually end up on this invoice have not happened yet. The way in which invoices compile in PowerDetails is based on a few things. Number one, your site settings billing cycle timeframe. Number two, how your site settings indicate invoices populate. This is either based on the job date or the date in which personnel report their hours. Number three, and most importantly, each employer's invoice grouping. Let's look at a very simple example. Number one, let's say our site has a monthly billing cycle as indicated in the site settings. Number two, we've indicated that invoices should populate based on the job date. And finally, number three, all of our employers have an invoice grouping set as Group All. In this scenario, each invoices generated in PowerDetails would contain all jobs that occurred within each month. Note that PowerDetails can handle many different scenarios, such as when personnel are paid directly or if you are invoicing in different ways. Contact support at powerdetails.com if you need any additional assistance in understanding invoice groupings and billing settings. To review the generated invoices, navigate to Billing on the top menu bar and click Invoice Search. Use the left panel to search based on any criteria needed for your review, including the billing cycle timeframe. If your site is utilizing the billing approval feature, invoices containing details that have not yet been approved by an administrator will display with a yellow warning symbol to note that information may change upon review. Generally, these should not be sent to employers before the warning symbol disappears and until the progress bar for that invoice reaches 100%. Note that if your site is configured to instead populate invoices based on the date personnel report hours, the invoice progress bar cannot be utilized. Clicking on an invoice ID will open its form to show specific details. The top sections of information are initially populated based on site configurations and information entered within an employer profile's billing tab. Administrators may modify most of what's here if necessary for the particular invoice. In the details section below, we can see the line items for this invoice. If the billing approval feature is being utilized, a yellow warning symbol will display next to the details not yet reviewed by an administrator. If corrections need to be made, you may either do so via the billing approval page or by clicking the reject link next to a person's name. This will send them back into a bill pending status, making the information on the job and the person editable once again, or simply to allow them to report the hours on the bill completed job page again. Details may not be rejected from an invoice form if they have been previously approved by an administrator when using billing approval, or if the invoice has been paid in full. In this case, payments must be first deleted in order to make changes to the invoice form. More on payments in a moment. Note that when personnel are rejected from an invoice form, all associated fees will travel with them to be reported again as well. Clicking the Void button on an unpaid invoice will automatically reject all invoice line items. Note that the invoice ID may not be used again if this action is taken. Invoices with payments listed cannot be voided. If a quantity is displayed in red, this indicates that the minimum hours established in the site settings is in effect. Hovering over this number will display the original reported quantity. Sites using billing approval can override this when necessary. If this invoice is ready to be sent, you can either choose to print and email the invoice outside of PowerDetails or to send it directly from the system. Invoices are sent to the email address located in the Employer Profiles Billing tab. Alternatively, the invoice can be simply marked as sent. This can be done from the individual invoice form or for multiple invoices on the main invoice search list. A blue envelope icon will appear next to any invoices that have been sent or marked as sent. A history of when invoices are sent or marked as sent is available within the Invoice History section on the invoice form. After an invoice has been sent or marked as sent, any employer users associated with the employers will be able to view the invoice when logging into their version of PowerDetails. Invoice payments can either be entered directly from an invoice form or under Billing and Receive Payments. Clicking Select here will allow the input of specific payment details such as a check number, while clicking the checkboxes can also allow you to just simply mark the invoice as paid. If the payment being entered exceeds the amount due, a warning will display to indicate that the additional payment amount will be stored within the employer profile as a credit. Accidental overpayments can be managed here, or if it was a genuine overpayment, it will become available to receive on other outstanding invoices. Prepayments can also be added within an employer profile's credit section to later apply once the job has happened and an invoice has been generated.